compared with big banks, institutional banks, as you mentioned, we see ourselves more human with personal relations to our customers. Every customer has an advisor. And for instance, our customer service is represented by real people. So if you get in touch with us by phone, you will meet someone like me or one of my colleagues, and not some tech or AI robot.
My name is Jochem van der Veer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Theydo, the journey management platform for business decision-making. We raised over $50 million and are growing globally. Our enterprise customers include Ford, J&J, the Home Depot, and Pfizer. I mean, wherever you look, understanding customers is key to staying ahead. But in order to do this at scale, aligning so many different teams with the customer journey is incredibly hard, but it is possible. I really wish this podcast existed before we started our company, because so many companies are organizing around journeys and there's so much to learn. So in order to share what I'm learning, what I'm hearing with our community, I meet with industry experts. And in my video podcast, I'm here to explore the world of business strategy, design, and journeys, customer journeys, to really get an understanding of how leaders are changing their way in their business. So let's dive into the show. Lasse is head of digital business and channels for Sparekassen Denmark. And he's a dynamic business strategist focused on digital transformation. He's an expert with a proven track record of truly driving customer-centric growth. So this is going to be an exciting one for us today. And with extensive experience in finance, including leadership roles in banking and pension insurance, he has successfully managed complex projects, teams, earning recognition from his innovative approach to digital business development and agile product design. And your work consistently bridges the gap between business and customer needs, delivering actual performance improvements. And today, I hope to dig in big with Lasse on org design, on how to get everyone aligned with the customer experience, but also taking a slightly different angle to business, as Sparekassen, and that will be a nice intro for us today, is actually not a typical bank. So Lasse, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's start there. It's not a typical bank. In our conversation before we started recording, you mentioned that might be important to cover. So when we think bank, we think big financial institution with a lot of shareholders, which basically drive most of the priorities. But that's not really the way that you are structured. Can you tell me about what's the difference between you as a savings bank versus what it means towards a traditional bank?
Yeah, for sure. I'll try, and thank you for the introduction. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, so as you mentioned, Sparekassen Denmark is different in more ways. And first of all, we in lack of better terms, we can call ourselves a savings bank. And as you mentioned, we have no shareholders. We are a self-owning institution. And for us as employees in everyday life, it means that we can think more strategically. We can think long-term. We can work on projects that not always necessarily fits the means of shareholders. And compared with big banks, institutional banks, as you mentioned, we see ourselves more human with personal relations to our customers, and for that sake, we are heavily represented in the Danish country. So we have 63 locations around Denmark, physically locations where people can come in and visit us, and that's more than several of the largest banks in Denmark. So in our business strategy, we are different, and we can see it on more than one parameter. So we have more physical branches. We have customers with an advisor. Every customer has an advisor. And for instance, our customer service is represented by real people. So if you get in touch with us by phone, you will meet someone like me or one of my colleagues, and not some tech or AI robot. So that's at least what we claim to do different than others.
So when you say long-term, What are we talking about? Are we saying a few quarters ahead, a few years ahead? And does that apply to all the things you do? Like, what does long-term mean in your book?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because thinking long-term is different, and it's difficult because we are, of course, regulated by the same laws. We are, of course, it's necessary for us to have the same economically guidelines and guardrails as the other banks. So of course, we will need some short-term planning as well. But when I say long-term, we have, for instance, our ongoing strategy period is from 22 to 27. So it's a 5-year period. Within that 5-year period, we of course have several, you could say, goals in between. So we work in different tracks, and some tracks are already done as we speak now. Other tracks are not even started. But what I could, if I should be really honest, I could say that we, maybe we lack on the ability to think digitally long term. So what I work with every day with my team is one of the areas in the Sparekassen where we are lacking behind. So we are not fast. We are not first movers. We are probably fast followers if we're lucky. So I would like to think more long term in terms of digital bank.
So does that mean that you're going to skip a few steps and start to be ahead of the curve using modern practices around AI, for instance? Or does that mean that you're rethinking digital experiences from the ground up? Like, what would be an example of applying long-term thinking there, where maybe it's different than a traditional bank that does have a lot of short-termism? Like, what would be a good example to give to folks at home?
Yeah, I guess that, of course, we are the size we are, and in the market we work in, we are to look at the other big banks in regards of digital instrument, digital tools, also AI. So an example could be that implementing AI-enabled meetings, meaning that we help the advisor prepare the meeting and also, take notes during the meeting and afterwards making some kind of resume or something for the meeting. That case is quite, I would almost say, well known in the market now, because a lot of banks and other companies use this as a tool. And for now, we are not necessarily introducing that tomorrow or next week or next month, but we are working on a solution that fits our business model, our strategy. So I would say that it could be advisors' ability to say no to this preparation or say yes, where I guess that in other financial institutions, they do not have the choice. They will need to take this technology in use. Otherwise, they are not allowed to be there, where we more tend to, follow the human advisors angle more than the technology angle. So it's kind of mindset, that's different from us.
I'm generally curious about using these AI capabilities to actually manage all these meetings and all this data that is coming through. Like, do your customers appreciate it? Are they okay with that everything is recorded in that way and used? Or are you, because you're human and because you're more human than others, seeing less friction than maybe others? Like, is that really happening for all your customers? Everything is used, everything is transcribed, everything is based on AI, where your customers are consenting with that? How does that play out in practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as I said, we are lacking behind. In this term, it could be a good mean to lag behind, because our customers are not truly through those AI processes yet. So we are not recording them in most senses, and the majority of our meetings are still unrecorded, probably also physically meetings with the customers. So we do not see the same, I could say, ethical issues that other financial institution does. But I can see your point, because I guess that customers not necessarily consent, even though they maybe consent in the way they do in an onboarding or whatever. But people do not necessarily consent to all personal data, both the spoken data and the written data and everything, to be used in this transcription. So I could see a potential gap there where we could fill in as a human-centric bank, because we are different. And if you are in a difficult situation in your everyday life, it could be, divorce, buying a house, buying a car, something where you feel insecure as a customer. Facing a human could maybe, flatten out your insecure state and make you feel comfortable in making a decision. And I guess that we could, that's our sweet spot in the market.
How do you make that scalable or efficient? Because every big bank that I'm talking to, they're investing in automating almost all of these interactions so that the human element becomes less. But what you're saying is like, our opportunities actually to do more of that, to remain human, to actually be human. How do you keep that efficient? Because at some point it doesn't scale anymore. There's too many interactions. There's too many people you need to serve your customers. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I guess you pinpointed the paradox in our business model right there. so we try to automate and make as much efficiency as possible in all those processes behind the scene. So as soon as the advisor leaves the meeting and maybe type in some knowledge to in order to produce whatever the machine should produce or the human should produce, we so we are trying to free the advisor from all this work by automating and maybe change processes to do less manual work and more automated work or AI supported work. So how are we different? Yeah, as for now, we have a lot of advisors and we have a lot of back office supporters and employees, and that's the paradox. I guess in the near future, we will have to look into more technology-based processes without human touch, due to the exact paradox that you are talking about right there.
Yeah, striking the balance between AI-enabled workflows and actual human workflows is the big thing. But maybe to not digress too much and just take a step back, I'm curious to understand a little bit how you are organizing your teams, your company around your customer, what they need. If we start high level, maybe you can lay the land of helping us to understand how you're organized and how you make sure that your teams are actually aligned with customer needs, the customer journey, the customer experience, what they actually prefer, so that you also keep that business performance efficient. So what are the things that you're doing well as a bank to organize around your customer?
Yeah, I would say that one of the things we do great, and also a part that makes my job easier, is that we have some strategic goals based in our business strategy, which is directly represented from the customers. So our customer surveys tell different things about, satisfaction, loyalty, different baseline areas, but they do also tell us something about this locally based business model. And those key metrics are in our strategy, and our board has put their stamp on these goals. And in our organization, we will try to fit in to first of all deliver on these metrics, but also to be in continuous feedback loops with our customers. So starting from the top, we of course have a board of directors, which each of them have several areas underneath them, and we organize. We do not express it this way, but I guess that we organize most customer-centric areas within one director. So we all refer up to the same director, and he can, have the broader picture of the customer-centric organization. So we have the business development areas divided into private customers, retail, you could tell, and business customers. And in the same director span of control, we have IT divided into several units underneath. And then we have marketing, where I'm based, which is also divided into different teams beneath. So one of the teams is digital business and channels, as I represent. The other team is graphic resources. And there's communication resources as well. And we also have a business development department focusing on customer experience. That's where we do our surveys. That's where we do our focus groups, and that's where we run our strategic tracks, which there's like 12 of, I guess. So that's the highlight, the high level organization. Within the customer-centric part of the organization.
So tell me what happens when, say, from your surveys or your focus groups, the research part of the organization that is in direct contact with customers, finding a significant change in their needs or a frustration they have with being a customer or what they might need in the future. Like if you have this 5-year strategic track that we're from 22, 27 in right now, and say today something significant bubbles up. I know a lot of organizations struggle with exactly this, right? The strategy is defined top down. There's clear goals, there's clear KPIs. And then bottom up, by understanding our customers, we see something they need, but we can't address because it just doesn't fit our strategy or just doesn't fit into any of these buckets. Like, what is the process in your world to reprioritize, to surface that, to be actually customer centric, to link that? What happens if you find something that you didn't know before that will change the business significantly? Like, what is that process of servicing that?
Yeah, that's hard work. We used more than 1 year to fit this process to the real world. But what we do less surveys than, I guess, standard. So we do 1 yearly survey, and when we receive those results from our customers, we work in 3 different tracks. So we work strategically by presenting the results to the board of directors and to C-level. And it's here where we adjust high-level metrics. So for instance, if we are lacking behind on satisfaction or locally based metrics, we will need to adjust, either say, okay, how can we fix this thing, or how can we adjust to the market or whatever changed around us. That's one area where people, I guess, normally just stops. So when they presented the results in the board, they just go home and do whatever they did before. But we try to work both tactically and operational with the results. So every survey comes within 3 reports. So we have the kind of main report to the board of directors. We have what we call regional reports, which is it's a collection of several branches within geographically region. And then we have branches reports. So every branch leader gets their own report where they can see, okay, my area, for instance, it could be Aalborg as a city in Denmark, or it could be Aarhus. The locally based leader receives his report, and within the report he can see, okay, these customers are not satisfied within your portfolio. How can we adjust or change? And in the regional report, the regional lead of several branches, he can tell, okay, I have 5 branches. Within my 5 branches, there's 2 underperforming. Why are they underperforming? And then we can, sort of enlighten him with insights from the report. So that was maybe some kind of long explanation, but it's also it's something we've been working on since 2016, I guess. So it's not something you can do just overnight.
So you've segmented it by like high-level report, the branch report, and then in the middle there's like some branches together where there's a regional report. Then if there's underperformance by a specific branch, it's often about up-leveling, upskilling, changing, or retraining. But if there's just a difference in there, that doesn't necessarily mean you as a whole need to change, right? It might be like we need to get someone back on track or back on par. What about the bigger changes? If there is a new insight that is on the global level, how are you thinking about tackling that? You mentioned that the IT and the marketing org are separate, but I imagine that focusing on delivering that customer experience means tying all these different teams together. So what happens when there's a bigger initiative that requires change across all the different branches? Is that something that is signed off on? Are there rituals around this? I'm really curious how you've been able to execute on this.
Yeah, that's also a big challenge, I guess, across the sector. But we, for instance, when we launched the new strategy, areas like accessibility, both to the advisor, but also to us as a bank within your mobile bank or web bank or whatever. Accessibility was an area where customers told us this is really important for our satisfaction, thereby also important for them choosing us as a bank. We put together, we call them strategic groups, but it's basically just a collection of people across areas. So these areas could be, as you mentioned, IT, it could be marketing, it could be some regional leads, regional directors from different regions within our area. And it could also be some of our C-level members in terms of anchoring this on a strategic level. So if we, for instance, as we did, decided, okay, we will establish customer service to broaden our uptime, we will provide a mobile phone for every advisor in order to make them more accessible to the customer. We sat down the team and said, this is the task. We will need to make this happen within some kind of period. It could be 12 months. And every team are to prioritize this as jobs to be done within the time frame. And we could do so because the C-level was represented in the room. So he was there to sign off. This is an important thing for the organization. So we will need to work across all different departments in order to succeed with accessibility or whatever area it could be. I guess it's the mean more than the goal.
What do you use to keep overview of all these different work streams and all these different opportunities and priorities aligned with your strategy and what your customers need? Like, what are some of the ways that you keep all the puppies in the box, or basically keep an understanding of like, are we on track or off track?
Yeah, that's something we're working on. We are in some way a new organization. We merged in 2021. Two medium-sized banks merged into Sparekassen Danmark as we are today. And since then, we have been working with prioritizing and making an overview across departments. You could call it portfolio overview or whatever you do in your own organization. But we work like with some kind of agile framework in order to make this happen. So we use roadmaps in order to the longer term projects. It could be our strategy. And underneath the roadmap, we of course have some, in some departments they use Kanban to do it, in other they use Scrum. So it's a IT-based method that we are prioritizing our jobs to be done. And we are represented. I actually just stopped my IT prioritization within a few seconds before we started this podcast. And this IT prioritization is going on every week, where different business units are together to prioritize what are our IT department doing for the next sprint. So it's down to very operational efficiency. But in order to do the tactical and the strategically level, we use roadmaps as a way of visualizing how we can impact different tracks.
So you have the annual strategic objectives, but then you have the weekly prioritization. I assume there are some in between, like monthly, quarterly rituals as well? Or is it really like strategic and very tactical operational?
No, you're right. We have the in-between thing, and it's monthly. So a sprint within the IT department is 1 month. So the weekly meeting is also a way of getting rid of any questions or complicating features that one maybe not understand. Then the business is collected to the business units are collected to kind of sort these questions out, so the IT department can enroll their development fast and without too much stakeholder management. That's the word, I guess.
That's always a good thing, to eliminate as much as stakeholder management as necessary. So it's becoming more objective. Speaking of that, in many agile organizations, these processes are starting to be foundational to organizing large groups of people and teams. And then sometimes the customer is left out. We see a lot of people using journeys to bring that context back together and have everyone align on where in the customer experience this actually plays out in the business. So I'm curious to understand how you're using journeys and the idea of a customer journey in the work to be customer-centric with your customers.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because the customer-centric part of driving an organization is key. So we kind of work with customer journeys in two different ways. So we have the internal layer where we kind of draw the process from A to Z. So the customer starting here and going through that and that, and by adding customer's voice, either by observing their behavior, analyzing their data, or understanding their both spoken and unspoken needs, we kind of map these things into the customer journey. So, for instance, we could say that onboarding, that's a quite important journey for us. We have the process mapped as a baseline, and to that baseline we add different customer touchpoints. So, for instance, filling in the application to become a customer. It's quite complicated because there's some questions we are to ask due to regulation or law. So we cannot not ask them. We will need to ask the customer. But the customer does not typically know, because it's an unfamiliar language. Maybe it's something they will have to look up or ask someone else to help them with. So it's a way in the process. It's a step, in the process where the customer typically drops off, call the advisor, call the customer support, and that's a friction point. So by observing that, we could change the wording or whatever to enhance that, or we could take a look in our surveys where we normally would see that we will have a lot of comments from customers on, for instance, onboarding. Or it could be the ability to block your card in the mobile bank. If that feature does not work, we would typically find, a lot of comments on that in our surveys. So we have, it's probably on theoretically, but we have two tracks when we look at customer journeys. We have an internal track where we map the process, and then we, enlighten or enhance the journey by, of course, taking in customers' touch points in in that part or in that journey?
I once had the CPO of a company called ENBW on one of my webinars, and he said there can't be any epic on a roadmap that doesn't link back to a customer journey. When you look at your monthly prioritization, your monthly cadence, like how much of the items on there are actually linking back to the journey or to the customer? Like how much is truly customer centric versus, oh, it's actually like something that slipped into from an angle from the business and we accept it, but we're not sure with that. Like, can you say something about that? And if you're not willing to say something about that, then like maybe talk about how you're helping your customer centricity in those kind of environments and those kind of prioritization rituals.
Yeah, I'm an honest person, so I'll need to answer this question honestly. No, of course, I would say that the majority was linked to a customer-centric view or customer journey, but it's not. I guess the reality we live in is some kind of management steer code. So we are to deliver on anti-money laundering, we are to deliver on compliance, we are to deliver on several areas where we're not always able to link it back to customer needs. So in order to comply to some kind of regulation and law, a lot of the items on our monthly prioritization and backlog are related to those areas. That's the truth. And of course, we can say when we do those kind of development tasks, we will need to do it so the customers face less friction. And that's where I think we can enhance. And I think the sector in general could enhance, because we can lean back and say, okay, we are to do this no matter what, but we could also do different and say, okay, we are to do this. How do we do it in the best way for the customer? So even though we could tell the customer, this is not our need, we will need to ask you this because the government tells us so, didn't that, we could say, okay, we are to deliver this in a way that the customer understand, easily answer, and then it's all for them. So I would love to say that it's the majority, but it's not, to be honest.
Is that even possible to be a reality in such a regulated environment that typically financial institutions operate in? I think you're right. It's hard in practice.
Yeah, totally agree.
How have you? Because this is interesting, right? I see a lot of financial institutions. They, especially during their digital transformations, and some of them are doing that right now, is that they're digitizing all the processes. But what happens is that, let's say, what you mentioned, the KYC, the know your customer processes, they're regulated. You have to do it. You can still make them feel human and more aligned with the language your customers speak, but you have to do it. But what happens in a lot of those cases is that 7 different teams, without knowing, are building the same digital flows, right? You have identification in mortgages, you have identification in loans, you have identification in account creation, and everyone is doing it with third-party providers, building it on their own. Like this, it's a mess. Like, what are you doing to avoid this? And I see that you're smiling. So for people seeing this on YouTube, you can see it. But if you're listening, Lasse is smiling right now. So what are you doing to avoid this? And I'm sure you have a few of those examples that were actually real in your business.
Yeah. So we could say that silo-based organizations are causing a lot of pain for the customer. Without saying that's us, I could say in general, I guess that silo-based organizations are harming customer journeys in general. But talking of what we do, I believe that simplicity is the key to a successful product design. So by bringing those different teams together, and in our organizational world, we also have different IT suppliers, third-party providers, everything, bringing them to the table, and start map the customer journey. it would be a great place to start, because then everyone knows, okay, we are facing the customers with this question. And if some other department or other organizations do face the customer already with some questions, they should raise their hand and say, okay, we are facing them twice now. But without bringing that knowledge to the table, people will not know. And as you say, we see a lot of development where people said, okay, this new process is in identification for loan. We did this. Yeah, but we all already do this in identification for mortgage or for cars or whatever. So we could be better in terms of bringing people to the table and start mapping the journey as the first delivery in the project. Because I believe that it will make customers more confident in making decisions. They're not overwhelmed with choices or different processes or different layouts. It could be the same process in a new layout. It's new for the customers, and they are busy enough in their everyday life. So we shouldn't disturb them with even more noise.
How are you thinking about measuring simplicity? I know this is a big one for many complicated or complex organizations, and it's hard to do this in practice. Well, what have you found to be working for you to actually measure simplicity, to truly simplifying the customer journey, to make sure they don't have this friction or just features for the sake of innovation? Like, how do you measure that? If you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast channel and leave a review. It makes all the difference. The Experience Edge podcast is where I interview business leaders, CX pioneers, and the best designers who share their insight on creating business impact, having an edge on the customer experience. If you want more exclusive content and behind-the-scenes access, check out the Experience Edge podcast on YouTube and LinkedIn so you don't miss a thing. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, that's hard, as you say. That's really hard. I think there's like two ways. First of all, customer feedback. So those engaging with the process will need their feedback. And second, usability testing. So when we are launching something, we will need to make sure that usability testing is a crucial part of delivery. So conduct a test to observe either how users do it, interact with the product or the process, or we do it ourselves as a first step. So we could take the test as an everyday person, but we are not the right testers because we know too much to test the process internally. So usability tests should be users interact with our product before launching. And in order to measure that, as you asked, we could do different things. I guess that the more basic things to do is like how many customers complete this task or this process, and how much time do they use. If we look at those two metrics, we could tell, okay, if they use 10 minutes more than we expected on a task or on a process, that's probably something we'll need to change. In terms of more general things, we could score them with the NPS in order to, when they completed a process, we could ask them, how satisfied are you, or how willing are you to recommend this to others? That's not that good in small processes, because when you ordered a card and you asked, do you recommend this? Oh, probably not, because I'm just ordering a card. And the last thing is the customer satisfaction survey, as we do every year. Our customers are asked, how do they see our platform, both mobile and web? And within this question, there's a comment. And those comments are golden words for everyone in my organization.
What is the most surprising insight that you found, say, last year, last quarter, whatever time frame you want to put to that? But what is one of the surprising things that might be unobvious to financial institutions that you learned from analyzing your customer data?
First of all, I guess that we are very lucky in the financial sector to have a lot of visitors on our mobile platforms, because it's It's your everyday banking life you have in your pocket right now. So it's a unique platform. But what I find interesting is that most people actually do not use all the features we provide them in the platform. They often check their balance, transfer money, most, basic features we have. And we develop all kind of lovely features. They could do whatever nice thing in the platform, but they just use basic features. And if we interrupt the customers, that's the worst thing we could do for them. So we'll need to be really careful when we interrupt the customers with surveys or collecting data or identification or whatever process we could push to them, because they are typically in the platform to check their balance, to transfer money, some kind of thing that they will need to get rid of in their everyday life. So we will need to think of this fact, you could tell, in order to be a success. And that's what customers tells us. So in our survey, we see that customers who are satisfied with us in different parameters, it could be satisfaction, loyalty, overall metrics like that, they're also satisfied with our platform. So general satisfaction is related to platform satisfaction. Because if you like us as a brand, if you like me as an advisor, and I'm not an advisor, but it's my good colleagues, you like the platform because you're more forgiving. So if we are disturbing you, okay, I like the brand, they can make a fail, that's all right, but I still like them. So general satisfaction is also affecting platform satisfaction.
Do you think that is a bias you're actively moving out of your analytics, that not only surveying and asking happy customers that are already satisfied about how satisfied they are, but actually get a good baseline? Because I know you can say many, many things about NPS surveys or satisfaction surveys, but that's often what happens, right? If my baseline happiness is okay, I'm not going to leave you, but I'm also not raving about you as a brand. I'm still a good customer. So how are you avoiding that bias, to really find what people actually do and what they think?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a pinpointing thing in the survey world, feedback world, because we're very carefully asking all customers, at least a representative part of all customers. So we're not only asking customers in which we engage with or who has been in contact with us. So we're asking all customers to get that broad picture of satisfaction. We're not asking customers every time they completed a process, because we think it's more disturbing than good. And in order to listen behind their words, as I guess you're asking, we try to do both quantitative, as surveys and stuff like that, but also qualitative. So making interviews, making focus groups, collecting more people in one room and asking them some open questions, which is some kind of way for us to understand what they say, but also what they do not say, because a customer in the financial sector does not necessarily know what they want, because it's complicated product, it's complicated services. So they could say, I would like lower prices, lower mortgage interest rates. Yeah, that's all right, but maybe you want some value, or to know what you'll need to get that lower interest rates. Or in another case where they say, I would like to do this in the mobile bank. Yeah, but it's already possible. So you would actually like to hear from us that you could do several things in your platform. And to balance that, we use real stories. We use real customers. So in our marketing of functions, of new campaigns, we use real customers to tell both us, but also other customers what are they experiencing with us as a bank and with us as a platform in case of the mobile bank.
Sorry, with using real customers, you mean like they are in your marketing campaigns advocating for the brand, or they are in your office, talking to your teams? Like, what does it mean?
Both. We are trying to have some kind of customer involvement within the development. It's immature still, to be honest. But we'll try to collect some continuous feedback from customers and use this knowledge in the development of different tools or processes. But also in our advertising, we are using real customers. So the people you could see, I know you probably haven't seen our branding campaign, but people in the branding campaign is real customers. And we are not saying that you get paid to do this. We are saying if you want, you are welcome to join this branding campaign. And luckily for us, a lot of people were happy to do so. And I find that really strong in sense of branding, what you could say, truly brand us. So it's not someone we paid to say this is a good Sparekassen Danmark thing. They are nice people. This is real customers who experienced how they could buy a house with help of us, so they could buy their first car, move to their apartment, whatever they have been through. So I find that as a quite unique thing.
I love that example. And having your customers be with you is, I think, the best testimonial you can have if they're real, right? If they're not fabricated, nice marketing ads with semi-fake customers. Do you believe that it's going to be more important in the future? Now everything's going to be digitized, everything's going to be AI enabled. Like, will that be an important part for you to stay human? And how are you thinking about, let's say, the next 5 years, where that human touch can, in one way, be the defining factor for your bank, but in another, also the limiting one, where your competition will be maybe focused on using artificial intelligence for almost all processes, maybe including marketing campaigns? Like, what's your take on staying human in the next 5 years?
I see kind of two types of touch points. So most touch points are to be digitalized. That's for sure, because people are way more digitalized than just 10 years ago. So a lot of, you could say, everyday touch points, we are to digitalize, we are to enable the customer to do themselves. And then we have those special touch points. You could say that it's the anniversary, it's divorce, it's buying a house, it's those getting a child, even though it's not the first or the second, but getting a child is also a big thing. These touch points I see as hyper relevant to be personalized, to be human, to be centered about the customer. So I think that we could enhance our position more than today by focusing on these touch points. But still, underneath that, we'll need to enhance and digitalize the rest of the touch points. Because of course you could be satisfied with us when you are buying a house and into the physical meeting or Teams or whatever. But if we are lacking behind on every digitalized parameter afterwards, we will still lose you. So we will need to play on both forces, if you could say so. So we should prioritize more digitalized touch points, but in the same way, we should stick to this unique position our business model provides with all the advisors we have, all the branches, as our selling point, unique selling point.
This might be a good segue to talk a little bit about organizing teams, but also the mental models you should have, which are maybe different than in a fully tech-enabled bank, where the feelings and thoughts of your customers and what impacts their day-to-day life is going to be key to understanding them. And when we were chatting before starting to record, you mentioned Systems 1 and 2 thinking from Daniel Kahneman, popularized by him or created by him, the framework. For people not familiar, please look it up. But what does that mean to you, and how are you helping your teams or coaching or designing your teams to really be empathetic and to really understand the feelings behind the actions of your customers? Like, Does that play a role in how you're shaping your teams? And if so, how?
Yeah, really look it up if you do not know Daniel Kahneman. It's truly interesting, so I agree. Yes, so I think that the knowledge about how our brain works, how feelings and emotional mental models are impacting everyday life, every decision we make during a day is impacted by this fact. And our limbic system, which is the subconscious processing, is making like 95% of all decisions. So it's fast. It's processing knowledge and information really fast. And it saves, the brain saves energy every time it uses this system one thinking. And that knowledge is crucial because when we are designing processes, sitting in a room with several clever people collected around the table, we are typically not in that limbic system. We are in our cortex using slow and deliberate conscious reasoning. Every dimension is taking into response here. So we are developing processes with all the knowledge we have, all the information, but without taking care of the customers and knowing that probably the customer will face the process with the fast and automatic system. So they're just ignoring some information, ignore some rational way of doing the process because it's just the way we do. It's the same in the supermarket, I guess, if it's called the paradox of choice. So if you have like 10 choices of the same product, could be butter, it could be cheese, whatever, you actually often see that people are less satisfied. If they had 2 or 3 choices of cheese, they would just pick one of them. If there's 10, 15 choices, yeah, it's a paradox because you just look at all those choices and don't know what to take.
It's the same with your example of like you were surprised with the amount of different features people use in your mobile app.
Yeah.
Where it's the same, right? It's like the 80-20 principle, like 80% of the usage come from like 20% of the features you offer. But this is true for many businesses, right? We try to overthink. We have way more information in our customers. So with the best intention, we try to design something which they don't even need or want to use. How should we think about avoiding that? Knowing that this is happening, knowing that these feelings and using the limbic system to make decisions is actually more prevalent than we like to be when we're designing these things. How does it shape the way that you're designing your teams or the processes for your teams?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not sure there's, the real conclusion to this, but I guess for me, it's about perception. So we will need the ability to take another perspective. It's something we say more and more, but that's at least my take on it. We do not always take another perspective because it's hard. It's really difficult to take another person's perspective because it demands you ask questions. It demands you're sitting, listening, and you're carefully listening because most of us in a busy day, we listen to something, but due to our bias, we already confirmed that, okay, this is something I know, this is something I do not know and should not know. So I think that, as you said, this is across all businesses, but knowing this fact that if we should understand the customers, we will need to ask questions. We will need to take time to listen to those answers and both what they say and what they not say, and take care of this knowledge about thinking fast and slow within development. So even though we have all those information and we would do our best to provide them to the customers, we should cherry pick their most important information in order to succeed with a given process or product or service. But as I said, it's hard to conclude, I guess.
It is. It is an ongoing evolution of being in lockstep with your customer. But since you launched our big portion of the mobile app recently, can you give an example of how this actually plays out in the relaunch of that part of the application for people listening. So really making sure that you're touching on the actual needs of the customer, the actual experience that you want them to have, which is probably not biased, or maybe there is more learning that you need to do. Like, can you give an example of how that actually shaped of the redesign of the mobile app?
Yeah, so we launched this new front page of the mobile app, and some of the features were a new message module where we could easier communicate with the customer, and that's a thing internally that was very liked. It was a nice feature, and then we put a lot of effort into that feature, and when we launched the front page, some of the most wanted features from customers was actually some kind of drag and drop feature between accounts. So they could drag and drop in order to transfer money between their own accounts. It was a minor feature we introduced because, it was easier to do when we already redesigned the front page. And now it shows, okay, this is a really easy way for me to transfer money. Thank you very much. So we were into this feature by communicating and introducing a new module and put a lot of effort into that. But a simple feature, and I say simple, because I know nothing IT development is simple, but this simple feature is a lot of customers didn't knew they could do it, and now they're really happy because it's something that speaks to the Olympic system of fast and processing, I guess.
How would you advise other people in customer experience to do more of this? Because this is something you hear over and over again, right? The big thing where everyone was excited about didn't really catch on, didn't see mass adoption, and customers typically didn't like it. But that one thing that we had no expectations of, boom, it took off. And you hear this over and over again. So there is something there. Like, how would you advise others to be more in tune with that?
Yeah. I guess we tend to underestimate the continuous development. So most organizations, I guess, work in a structure where larger projects find funding, they find the interest of people, they find what you could say cross-functional focus. But what customers in their everyday life with our product or service mostly want is those continuous enhancing features on already existing features. So we should maybe change the structure or acceptance of these continuous developments to have, first of all, funding, but second, focus, both from C-level, but also from the levels underneath the C-level. So we're not always focusing on new big features, new large projects. That takes a lot of time, involves a lot of resources, but maybe we should say 10-20% of our resources should work on these continuous development products or services or whatever the organization is doing. But it's hard because, people tend to love big projects, myself as well. We tend to seek that big victory, but customers normally not always see that big victory as a victory.
Do you have something like friction hunting or a process in place for all these like smaller frictions? I know I had Steven van Bellegem, who's big on this, and Todd Unger, who's a CXO of the AMA on, and they're all advocating for frictionless experience. I don't know if that's going to be possible ever. There's always going to be some friction, but do you actually have something around that in place to eliminate all these tiny frictions in the customer experience, in the journeys, in the digital touch points that you have with your customers? Is that something that's common that you have and employ regularly?
I wouldn't say it's common, but I would say that we do it in specific areas of systems. So we have this kind of advisory system where we do bug hunt. So we find those bugs, which is not always bugs, but always also just minor enhancements, and we fix them regularly. The same within the mobile platform, web and mobile platform, where we have actually just in 25 funded a project where we're looking into speed into everyday processes and into the accessibility. So we would like to, of course, have 100% accessibility, but as you say, it's probably unlikely to make 100% frictionless processes, but we are at least aiming to with this new project. But again, it's a structure where we'll need to establish a project in order to find funding, in order to find resources. But that's the way we will need to work around this thing to still have continuous development, I guess, in our structure at least.
Lasse, I want to do a fun lightning round with you. I want to ask you about 4 types of journeys in your life. Your first customer journey, your last one, the worst and the best. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So what was the first journey? And again, like you can answer this in any way, right? It doesn't have to be one that you were a customer of or you designed or you created. Like what was the first journey?
Yeah, so I guess the first journey that I at least remember, it was both a journey and a team. So in 2017, we established a team to serve our customers between 18 and 28. So it's a youth concept. And all the process related to this customer segment, we were looking at. And one of the most interesting customer journeys here is around 18 years where you at least financially turn independent. But what we discovered was that people do not at no point feel independent here because they are typically still living with their parents. They do not know how a financial life works. They typically just have their card and use it everywhere they go. So we established actually also a human-centric journey around this, where we called the young fella and told him, we're your bank. We know that you do not know anything about us. That's all right. Lean back and we will help you through the next years where you're studying whatever you do. And within that conversation, we mapped some touch point where it could be relevant for the customers to get a call, not necessarily for us. So it could be them moving to a new apartment. And we gave them a call and said, okay, you moved to a new apartment. We can see, we hope you're happy. And in terms you need, in case you need anything from us, feel free to reach out. And then we, of course, listed some things we could help them with.
That's awesome. What about your worst journey?
Yeah, the worst is actually not in the company I'm in right now. Luckily, if they hear this, but in a company I was in before, we had a project of enhancing the process of delivering healthcare information. So in order to buy an insurance, we would need some healthcare information from the customer, and that journey was difficult. There are a lot of difficult questions, a lot of difficult information the customer had to collect from different places, doctors, medical care, whatever. And we did not succeed because there was internally some forces against changing this process, because why change something that works? And they did not talk to customers, as you can hear. And worst of all, my experience was actually that we did not use so much of this information. So let's say, I can't remember, but let's say there's 25 questions in this healthcare collection of data. And I think we used 5 in order to make this risk score to the customers. So that's the worst not completed journey that I have participated in.
So let's move over to the best one then to make it more positive. Yeah.
And I would actually point out this front page relaunch or redesign that we did, because we relaunched this front page as I spoke about, and it was across several banks in Denmark, in Norway, in Sweden, in Faroe Island, and we were a Spock single point of contact for all this project. So all the banks were represented via us, and in order to succeed in that journey, we held a lot of, internally faced meetings. We used customer feedback from different banks in different countries, and collecting all those insights really made this journey and onboarding to the new front page successful. Maybe not precisely as we predicted, as I said, with the communication module and the drag and drop feature. But even though we are a place now where all 4 countries are really happy, and the customers are as well.
So your best journey is also your last journey? Can I say that?
Yeah, it actually is. The last journey is my best. Maybe it's something about bias again, because it's the most recent journey. But let's say, yeah, it's in the top at least.
Oh, that's fantastic. Lasse, if people want to know more about what it means running journeys, organizing around the customer in a mutually owned bank or in a financial institution at large, where can they find you? Where can they reach out if they want to connect with you?
I think that most professional connections are made on LinkedIn, and they are more than welcome to make a connection here. My name is probably somewhere in the bio of this podcast. And they also more than welcome to reach out to my company email. I'm listed on our website as Lasse Kragh, which is my name. And I'm not that active on different social medias, so I think LinkedIn and the old-fashioned email is a good way of communicating with me. But I'm more than happy to learn, first of all, from others in the same or mutual areas, and of course also to share some of our thoughts and experiences in this.
Thank you. You are too kind. Lasse, it was great chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope we can do it again.
Thank you as well. It was a pleasure.
All right, and that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable today, don't forget to subscribe to The Experience Edge on your favorite podcast channel, leave a review, and share it with your team. I'd be delighted. Today's episode was brought to you by Daydo, the AI journey management solution for enterprise. To have an edge on your business strategy and to know why your customers do what they do, visit daydo.com and explore more resources to accelerate your customer experience game. And remember, the journey to creating customer-centric impact never ends, and here's always a new edge to discover in doing things differently. Next week, new episode. Until then, keep pushing the edge and stay inspired. See you in the next episode.